All right, well, let's dive into the problem list. There are actually a couple of ways into the problem list. The main one is this problem list button, which is now on the right side of the patient's main EMR screen. You can also get into the problem list as you're doing your document through the PDoc section. But for now, let's go in through the front door instead of the side door. So this patient doesn't have any problems, and you'll see that they're segregated out into these different sections: medical, surgical, family, and social. In order to add problems, you go down to this button down here in the bottom left corner, Add Problems. This brings up this interactive screen here. In the search bar here, for now, when you type in a problem, let's do acute systolic heart failure. As you're typing it in, it is searching through a dictionary of about 6,000 terms that we have kind of groomed and manipulated here at Augusta to provide things that the QRM reviewers and the coders are particularly looking for. Over the next few months, we'll be we'll be installing a new software tool that will provide us a much bigger dictionary. So instead of very specific things, there will be, instead of very limited things, there will be a very, very large number of things in the dictionary, which will be both good and bad because you'll be able to find almost anything you're thinking about, but it may be a little frustrating to some of the coders, but we'll deal with that as we get to it. But for now, let's go ahead and pick this acute systolic heart failure problem. When you click down here in this interactive portion, you'll see that it shows up on this portion of the screen here. This is not the real problem list yet. This is a kind of a work in progress. You haven't saved this yet, and that's going to be a potential pitfall, is that you have to remember to actually save this twice. So we'll try to emphasize that as we go along. So as you pick the problem here, you'll see that it defaults to certain things. So it shows up on the active medical list. You'll see what the other options are as we go along, and it is an acute status. So as you enter problems, they always default to active, medical, and acute. By clicking the current visit section, will make it easy to pull it into the documentation that you'll be doing as you go through the patient's hospital stay. The onset section here is something that you can fill in if you want to, but is not required, and I wouldn't recommend spending your time doing that quite yet. It maps in the background to ICD codes. This is ICD-9. We'll eventually be going to ICD-10, and it will help us a little bit with that transition. The permanent comment section here is something that travels with the problem forever. So don't refrain from putting snarky things in here, because this will be something that stays with the patient forever. So the way I think about this is the kind of thing that we tend to put in our past medical history section of our history and physical. Ejection fraction 25% in 2011 on echo. So doing that becomes a permanent comment that will flow with the problem wherever it goes. So there we put in one problem. Now let's do, so that's an acute problem. Let's add a chronic problem. Let's pick chronic kidney disease. I made a mistake there with my lookup. I'll show you a way to save yourself a little time if you have clumsy fingers. So let's pick chronic kidney disease. And again, that shows up as an active medical problem that has an acute status. Well, the way I think about active is it's something I'm actively thinking about it. So therefore, it shows up on the active list. And it's medical because it's chronic kidney disease. However, it's not acute. It's something that's been going on for a while. It's by definition chronic. So let's pick chronic. Not that you would do that for kidney disease, but for other things you may be tempted to hit resolved. Let's not do that for now until we understand a little better about how the problem list works and how it flows to the health information exchange and the discharge summary and other places. So now we have a chronic problem that's on the active list because we're actively thinking about it, and it's medical and it's chronic. Let's add a surgical problem now. Let's do laparoscopic cholecystectomy. But instead of typing in all of that and spelling it wrong and having to backspace, just type in the first couple letters of each word. And it is smart enough to realize that you're looking for two different words and will help you look up each of them. So there's a little shortcut that's actually handy. And similarly, this defaults to active, medical, and acute. But so I'm actively thinking about lap chole. Maybe this patient has some retained stones, or maybe their abdominal symptoms are related to that. So I'm actively thinking about it. I don't think of it as an active problem, but in the problem list world is going to work a little differently. It's also tempting to to put this on the past list, but I'm actively thinking about it, so I'm not going to do that. If you do click past, it will go to the problem list, but it'll be on a different screen, a different portion, a different layer of the problem list, and not as easily accessible. So for now, let's not click on past. However, it is fine to put it on the surgical list. So we have a problem that we're actively thinking about. It's surgical. However, it's not an acute problem. Let's call it chronic. So here, similarly, just like past, it's tempting to click resolve because it's a surgical procedure that was completed and presumably didn't have complications and is over and done with. But if you pick resolved, then it kind of disappears from easy viewing, and we think also will not flow out of the EMR to the documents that have to do with the transitions of patient care. So for past surgical problems, let's call them active, put them on the surgical list, but put them under the chronic status. I didn't do this before, I forgot, but let's put all these on the current visit. Similarly, you can use the permanent comment, and you could say, by Dr. B. Kibbe in 2009 as a permanent comment. Let's put in symptoms. So these are all specific diagnoses and procedures, but we will also be putting in symptoms. Let's pick nausea and vomiting. The difference with the symptom is that will be something that presumably evolves during the patient's stay. We may come up with a specific diagnosis rather than just a symptom, and we'll show you later how to delete a symptom and replace it with a specific problem. The more specific we can keep the problem list, the more useful it will be. Nausea and vomiting, active, medical, and acute. That's fine. So now we have, this is the interactive screen. This is not the final problem list, and you have to really remember to come down and click OK. So OK tees it up into, this is how the problem list looks, but this isn't actually the official problem list yet. So this is another potential pitfall. So we've clicked OK to get it here, but you still have to save it. So come down and save it. And that puts it on the final problem list. What you can't see right now is taking us back to the EMR, but let's go back into the problem list, and here it is. So this is now the problem list that will flow from visit to visit and day to day with the patient. So, okay, great. Now, what do we do with that? Well, let's go ahead and put it into, use it to help drive our documentation. So let's say I come in on the hospital day number, full hospital day number 1, and I'm going to create a progress note. So this is a template that we're building here to update our progress note. If you look down here, the assessment and plan section looks pretty inconspicuous, but it actually has a lot of functionality to it. The discussion section here is one where you'll be able to just type or use Dragon to dictate free text about the patient situation. Let's say that they, this kind of frames a situation, gives insight into your medical decision making, gives a little background. It's sort of the narrative portion of the patient's presentation, if you need to use that. If you don't need to use that, then you can dive on down here into this problem section. So if you click anywhere in this, where the hand shows up here on the right side of the white area or on the down arrow, this is a little window into a side door into the problem list. So these will look familiar to you as the ones that we just did a little while ago. So if you want to bring these into your note, you click these little boxes here. So we're going to document on today's note the systolic heart failure, the chronic kidney disease, nausea and vomiting, and we're going to mention something about the lap chole. So let's click OK. And that's going to put this into, it's going to provide the structure for the assessment and plan of this day's progress note. Once they get in here, you may not like the order they're in. So that you won't get them in perfect order the first time you put them in the problem list in the first place. So you can move them around. So let's move chronic kidney disease down to the bottom. You can use these function keys to do that. So the down arrow with the little underline underneath it moves it all the way down to the bottom. And the up or down arrows without the line just moves it up one space. So now you've got lap chole in second place. But actually I'm going to talk about heart failure and then nausea and vomiting in the lap chole. So let me move the nausea and vomiting up. If you don't want to document it on it at all, then you can click the red X and that will take it off of the progress node, but will not delete it from the problem list proper.